Hello and welcome back. We have now for the continuity of our Pauper deck text in this discussion of our deck feature for this one is we call this one as the black burn. So why it's called burn when it's going with the black color strategy? It's that because of the main setup of this deck is to basically burn out your opponent's life total in the form of life drain effects and also winning from that kind of card advantage. So they are not basically attacking through to regular combat attacks and damage, but basically going with this route. So you can see here we have a lot of sorceries. The 16 sorceries that does some of the lose 3 life for your opponents, life gain effects, having lose him 2 life, gaining you life, and also some of these other cards that we can use. And we're going to check the deck distribution. We have 4 artifacts, 4 enchantments that also goes with the life drain effect that also can become a creature into an Izumi Road Captain. We have 12 creatures that are also having similar strategy, 6 instants that gets you card advantage, 18 lands, and the main damage dealing in this set is this pile of 16 sorceries. And we have also 15 sideboards, sideboard cards that we can discuss in a bit. So starting off with the creature choices, since we know that life drain is the main strategy, so we have 4 copies of Cauldron Familiar. If you're not yet going with why is this already in the common slot, it is now demoted with this version. So it's still a strategy that you can still have this one enters the battlefield having your opponent lose life and gain 1 life, and you can still chip in some early damage if you're going that against slow opponents, wherein you can just cast them for turn 1, attacking for a bit, and then when it dies you can sacrifice a food to return it back to the battlefield from your graveyard. So other food tokens here as we have are Lembas. We also have Gingerbrute if needed that we can sacrifice it. And why is Gingerbrute is also included in this deck with absolutely a playset copy? Because its ability that cannot be blocked except by creatures with haste. With this kind of setup, it can basically become unblockable and can just deal on some pretty small chunks of damage, which can be very relevant as you can be able later on to reach your opponents with the life drain effect or your life drain sorceries per say. And so since this is also a food, in instance that you would need to return Cauldron Familiar, you can just pay to sacrifice it to gain your 3 life, and then having this trigger also return it back to the battlefield. So basically there are also your food options also with that of as mentioned earlier, Lembas, wherein you can also draw card, scry 1, you can shuffle this one into your library, and when it goes into the graveyard from the battlefield. And that other creature choices that is also playset in the deck is the 4 copies of Serrated Scorpion. So I think this printing has also first included an Ikoria. This is just a 1 to cast 1/2 that when it dies it can deal 2 damage to its opponent and you will gain 2 life. So in a way that you can chump up or you can chump block bigger creatures for your opponent is that you can use them to draw you a card. So you can pay Village Rites, for example, to sacrifice that creature. You will have your opponents lose 2 life, you will gain 2 life, and then you will also draw 2 cards in the process. In a similar fashion, you also have 4 copies of Deadly Dispute with the same option to sacrifice a creature, but also Deadly Dispute can also choose an artifact to sacrifice for this casting of this spell. And then you also draw 2 cards and then create a treasure token. So with that setup, we have basically another 1 drop in the deck. So as mentioned in a while, this card or this enchantment saga can have your opponent lose 1 life and you will gain 1 life. At the same time, when you're able to flip into the 3rd lore counter, it becomes a 2/2 creature with menace, and having also vehicles you control have menace. The important thing here is that having a menace creature will most likely be able to deal some important damage as you go with having your opponents down in life total and having them be able to be reached out by your drain life sorceries. Now we go with the setup of these cards as to why this is called the main component that is very relevant is that we have several life drain. The first of we have 3 copies of Arms of the Vein This can deal 3 damage, so basically have your opponent lose 3 life and you will gain 3 life, and have also the option of Madness that can only pay 1 instead if you discard this card. And then we have Vampire's Kiss, that's 4 copies. It's a 2 cast sorcery from Crimson Bow that's having your target player lose 2 life and you will gain 2 life, and you will also be able to create 2 blood tokens. So these blood tokens can be later on used to sacrifice, for example, for the Deadly Dispute, or just be used to discard a card and sacrifice this one to draw a card for your extra card draw. So if you need it, you can also have this one combo with the Madness effect. So with that, we also have 4 copies of Tyrant's Choice. This is from, I think this is the Conspiracy card only, though we have also a copy here in the, I'm not sure, it's expansion, the special expansion. In its ability, that's a Will of the Council. Starting with you, its player votes for the death or torture. If death gets more vote, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If torture gets more vote, or the vote is tied, each opponent loses 4 lives. Also another life loss damage effect. Then we also have 3 copies of the Sovereign's Bite. This is just a 2-cast version of the earlier card, which is the Arms of the Vine, except that it is only having no Madness effect, but the same main effect that has having your target player lose 3 life and you will gain 3 life. And 2 copies also of Bumped in the Night, in which target opponent loses 1 life with a flashback of 6 for red, and which you can see here that we also have copies of Rakdos Carnarium to fix for the red flashback, and also Deadly Dispute that can also create a treasure token to pay for the red mana. And for this setup, we have 4 Bolt of Whispers. This is an artifact land, 12 swamps, and 2 Rakdos Carnarium to fill up for the 18 lands. Now for the sideboard, we're just going to have a quick rundown of the deck. We have 3 copies. This is I think 3 copies, yes. 3 copies of Nail Spellbound for Graveyard Shenanigans, particularly for the blue-black terror, or any mono-black or even mono-blue terror decks that has reliance on the graveyard synergy or shenanigans. 2 cast down for spot removals, additional effect for also an headache effect for creatures, particularly those that has protection from black, for example, in which you can have your player sacrifice that creature instead, and having also them loses 1 life. 2 copies of Crypt Rats as sort of a sweep effect for tokens, because you can just pay X to deal X damage to each creature and player, and spending only black mana. 2 copies of Suffocating Fumes, the same function of having them lose 1, their opponent's control gets -1/-1, and can also be cycled. And 2 copies of Snuff Out that can also be paid or for an alternative cost of 4 life, rather than paying the 4/4 to destroy target non-black creature. And that for the setup is pretty much very simple for that. If you're facing a lot of tokens, just use Crypt Rats and Suffocating Fumes to deal with them. Cast down for any relevant big creature, where also the same stuff out, and Guess Where they can also be used for that one, in case that they have some, especially for the Auras deck, where they have several creatures that cannot be targeted by spells or spot removals. And for mono blue and blue black, basically Nail Spellbound is your best card of choice to deal with their graveyard. And last but not least, the average mana cost is surprisingly 1.6. With only 18 lands, you can basically have this one suffice with the mana cost, as well as you have several card draws also here, and blood tokens that can be used for card draw effects to have them draw into your lands if needed. Contribution will not really matter here, because we're just basically using mono black in the main deck, having only black's red splash for only 2 cards for Bumped in the Night, and our tokens here are just blood tokens and treasure tokens as we use for this kind of deck. So if you've seen this one in MTG Online or any other local play store or game store that wherein you have your Pauper tournaments or events, I suggest you can have this one as your deck of choice if you're not going well with just typically attacking with your creatures, or let's say you're using mono aggro. I would also go with this kind of strategy wherein you can just burn out your opponent with his life dealing effects and win from that kind of deck strategy. So I guess that's pretty much it for this deck tech for Pauper Legacy. Do like and subscribe and notifications as well, so we can have more of this kind of discussion, and you will be the one to be first to notified for any new uploads for the Pauper deck strategy format. Again guys, thank you for checking on this video, thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.